I want to talk about like each step of the games, and I'll try to do it as fast as I can. Oh, let me go back here real quick. Okay, so this is the start of the game. Me and Expert Hunter we're 0-0. You know, this is like literally the beginning of our match. And this hand, I had to decide whether to keep it or shuffle it out. And this is the mirror match too. So Alfred himself is a good card, and I also have two like destroy cards. But in my experience with playing this deck, having Alfred with other units that is not Nobunaga is kind of just better to have. You don't necessarily want to start the action phase, because these actions in the mirror, they're much better for denying self-predations. So I didn't want these cards here and now. Like this was a decent hand that you could play out of, but it's not the hand that you wanted at the beginning of the game. So usually a better hand is like having more units or even having gates and having Alfreds. But you generally don't want to see your destroy cards in the mirror like this early in the game, especially two of them. Even Nobunaga here like this early is pretty bad, because you don't get the scaling that he's supposed to pop off at. Nobunaga doesn't really scale early. He's kind of a card that you play mid game, and then for the rest of the game he'll just like pop off and do his thing. But if you do like an early Nobunaga, his momentum is like very slow, very derailed. It's not as good as it could be had you just played it in mid game. So this hand, after like seeing that, I immediately just shuffled it out, and I got rewarded for it. So this hand is awesome. There's this one game that I had last season. I played against Taiga, and the dude literally played 3 gates on me, and each one of them did 6 damage. So getting a hand with 2 gate, yeah, that's really good in the mirror match. So at this point, me and my opponent, we're waiting till one of us makes a move, or because we're both reactive players right now. And the thing is if you play the first unit like this, so Xanxus already starts to play the first unit, and that could either go decent for you or bad. So the reason why you would want to do this type of play like Xanxus did is if you had a destroy card like Fate of the Unworthy. If you had Fate of the Unworthy, this play made sense. This play would make sense, because what you would do is you would play another unit and then Fate this gate that I'm about to block with. But to put your gate out like that at the beginning and make your first move, I'm just going to be able to capitalize on it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop gate, I'm going to drop another gate, and I'm going to drop Junie. And this will make it into a 9 health, dealing 6 damage. Your unit would either die because it has 5 health, or it would crash into this gate, and my gate would live, and then you have to deal with my gate now. So you really needed Fate of the Unworthy to not make this unfavorable to you. Or even like drop a 2-fox here. If you dropped a 2-fox here on Alfred, the moment I played this gate, that's a really good tempo swing as well. Because then I'm -1 without the MP boost, and then I have to somehow block your gate and block with Junie in an unfavorable state of the game. But it ended up working out for me because you didn't have any of those plays. But you did play 2-fox mid, which I kind of agree with, because it ended up neutralizing my gate here. But then my gate up top was able to go out free. We ended up doing the Nobunaga Ascension. I ended up trading with Tenkai. Also, this Junie was kinda necessary, but also kinda weird, because I was able to take advantage of it and get that growth gate to able to hit you like directly. Yeah, the more than one gate was pretty crazy. But I think in that situation, you should almost like never play the first gate in the mirror match ever. You should never play the first gate because you'll always there's like so many situations where you lose out on that strategy that it requires you to have two plays, which I kind of like pointed out. Like you need the Fate or you need the two Fox over the Alfred. Either of those plays would have made it favorable to you, but by doing neither, it just made the situation more favorable to me. And I could have had that like benefit me if even if I had only had one gate and the second gate was like some other 3-cost unit. But it was very lucky of me, and it did matter that I had 2 gates, because I was able to like put you in situations where you had to make tough choices. Me having 2 gates did make you have rough 2 choices, and that's just kind of the thing. Is like Teppen's a game where you kind of have to make these tough decisions, and that's how it is, you know. There was one thing I wanted to point out here. So, I got my Rao, and a well-timed Rao is really good. I think that a lot of people like they don't like Rao, they don't like Ninetales. And from what I've been seeing of like other players and people on the ladder, I think there are people that just play the Ninetales wrong. Like they just play it in wrong situations where they actually like let it die. But you generally want to play Ninetales in situations where she can give you a lot of value. And this was a good place to play Rao. But I do want to say in defense of Expert Hunter here, like I'm sure you know, Expert Hunter Zanzis was completely aware that when you play an action, you know, your unit dies, and then they use the self-predation. I'm sure they're like 100% aware. So the reason why they did this was because they probably just had too many self-predations in their hand, and in the Oichi matchup, and especially the situation that I've put Zanzis in, having those self-predations in your hand, especially if you have more than one, it already puts you in a very bad spot. Like it's really hard to come out of that of having like multiple predations in your hand and you're already behind, because then that means that you can't defend the field, and it means that you have very few cards to play from. So they ended up using the self-predation. I think they did that because, you know, they had to cycle, they had to draw more cards. But not only that, once this action phase started, I noticed that Zanzis had 9 MP, so I was like, oh, this is like a perfect situation where he could play Cruel Games, kill all my stuff, and then pop Despair. So that would have been great had he had that card in his hand, but he didn't. So yeah, good play here. I got the hit, so I was very surprised with this, because this means that he didn't have Cruel Games. And I just let my board rock. So here's the thing about Cruel Games. If you ever have the suspicion that your opponent has Cruel Games, yeah, don't overcommit. Because if you play a third unit, then you lost that third unit for nothing against Cruel Games. So what I do here is that I already have the life advantage, and that's all I need. Having the life advantage is all you need in the Oichi mirror, or even just Teppen in general, because that means that you're winning. So you don't have to play more units. I think that's a misconception and a fallacy that a lot of players and gamers put themselves in, is they always think they have to do something, but you really don't. You really don't have to do anything, and it's just figuring out when you have to play cards and when you don't have to play cards. Because I don't think that everybody notices that there's a duality, there is a amount of duality where you have to play cards and you don't have to play cards. And knowing, and how you find that out is knowing the matchup. If you know the matchup, then that's how you are able to decide, like, okay, this is where I play the card, this is where I don't play the card. So because I'm playing against Zanzis and he's on mono black, which has access to cruel games, then I know to not play a third unit to push for game. I know to play cautiously. And at this point, I'm thinking like, okay, so he didn't have the cruel games, then I'm just going to play defensively. So for the rest of the game, I'm playing defensively, but I did check the death count on my curse extraction. So here I need to make a play. Block bottom. I decided not to do Despair there because I just had so much mana. But now I can Despair and then charge some MP. And then, like I said, you know, having self-predation early in the mirror match is very not good. And Zanzis confirms it with us in the chat that he indeed did have the 3 predations in hand. So that's just like very unfortunate, and that just means that the reason why I won this was probably like RNG. Having 3 predations in your hand against the Oichi mirror is really bad. So in some cases, I feel like I did some really optimal plays, but in other cases, I also think that I got lucky because Zanzis' options were not good, and I just kept like hammering my advantage here. So again, we use the we use that, and I don't agree with that play, but I'm assuming you were forced to do it because I ended up capitalizing here. You know, like I said, you want to keep your 3 MP kill cards for this exact situation where they use self-predation like that. So mind you, I still have the idea that, oh, this guy has cruel games, so I'm not going to play the unit. Because then that would just, you know, be like, oh, automatic cruel games. But I waited till last second. I waited till last second to play this Alfred. Because, number one, I was already, like, really close to this. But had he did cruel games, I would have gained, like, 2 MP back. And also, it's like, it's kind of like a filter. If he had played cruel games like just right there, and I lost my gates before the damage happened, then I would get the thing. But additionally, what Zanzis could have probably been thinking like, you know what, I'm just gonna take 6 damage, that's fine. And then I'll just wait for Iowa to play another unit so I can have a bigger cruel games. So you put them into that situation and they have to think. They decide their future at that point. And then after that you just try to push whatever else you can. But had I just like played the Alfred very early, that's kind of a no-brainer. Like just play cruel games there, you know, pop the field. So for that reason, waiting that long to play a 3rd unit, not playing any cards, is 100% beneficial to me, and it puts Expert Hunter in a, you know, a situation where he has to make some tough choices. And as you can see here, Cruel Games is right there. So that's how I got so much advantage just from not playing any cards. I was able to deal 6 damage, even though Zanzis had Cruel Games. So I have the double Alfred here. I didn't really have much else to play. And I'm doing mana checks because as soon as he plays like his next 2 units, I check their MP cost. But I'm also hovering because I'm capped out. Okay, so this let me talk about this. Let me talk about this. So he played Rao, and like I said, one second, let me take a drink of water. So, what is this, called? Okay, so the Rao, right. So the Rao here, it's all about knowing the matchup, and if you understand how this game works, Rao can only transform when a human dies. So as soon as I saw that he had this, like he played a Rao and it wasn't transformed, and my despair was like at 13, then playing Curse Extraction was like everything here, because that was a 6 MP commitment that I'm taking away from the field. And me knowing the deck, knowing the matchup, I know that there's like not a lot of situations that you can play out of this. Like there's no cards or situations that he could do to play out of my Curse Extraction that I'm about to do to kill that Rao. I guess he could have used like Fate to transform, but then your Rao like gets smaller. So I use Curse Extraction, and Expert Hunter like realizes, oh, I'm gonna lose my 6 MP, so he responds with Curse Extraction, which was favorable to him. And I actually did make a mistake, because what I should have done is I should have like killed my Alfred, so then when his Ninetales transformed and then his Curse Extraction resolves, the Ninetales would have self-destructed. But I didn't do that, so... But I still was able to, you know, continue playing the game. Also, I see Thirsty in the chat. So the reason why Thirsty knows why I didn't use Tenkai to do the 2 growth units on gate for like last second hits is because if he was hovering the Cruel Games, I would have lost like 6 MP and all those gates with no damage. So that's the reason why you don't want to make that play, but it could definitely have like a really big reward. Yeah, I make a lot of good chain plays here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this game. But I do want to make one note, since Xanthus is still here, is I looked at your big Resonate deck. I know we didn't get to play that match, but definitely if we have another tournament soon with this format, I highly recommend that you add Brain Control to your deck, because right now Brain Control makes the most sense. There's so many big units that just do things that having a Brainwash in your purple deck makes a big difference. Yo, what's up, Cosplay? How was that tournament? Pretty dope. I enjoyed watching everyone, so shoutouts to you guys. Not much, just going over my my TEPPEN stuff. I wasn't planning to, but because Kyle asked so nicely, I decided why not. Alright, so I do want to talk about the hero pick here. And I just want everybody to know that the other choice that Xanthus could have picked was Celestial Envoy. And I 100% think that Xanthus made the right choice in picking Oichi again. So the reason why you would pick Oichi again instead of your Takeda Celestial Envoy deck is because Oichi is definitely the better of the two decks. Especially in this matchup as well. Because, you know, with red, what you need to do is you need a high roll with your legendaries. But with Oichi, you just have a really strong foundation and you have overwhelming numbers. So this was 100% the right pick for Xanxus. I just wanted to point that out. So my deck is really weird. My Felyne, action, 5 cost and higher deck. This deck is so weird to play. It really is. Like there's never like a good hand. There's really never a good hand with this deck, besides 7 Soaring Spirits and Leader Summons, and that in itself is a very low chance of drawing. So most of the times I have to do Leader Summons at the beginning of the game if I have it. That's better than putting out the big drops, because if I play out the big drops, what would happen is, like, if I play Chun, then the Oichi player can possibly obliterate. Then I just lose my Chun for a 1-for-1. And my deck has very limited amounts of big units, like the 5-drop, the 6 cost, the 5-drop. I have very limited amount of those. So if I ever lose one of them, it hurts my late game plans. So what I do instead is I play Leader Summons, so I can charge up my AP, and I can have a feel out for what they're going to do. I also make them misplay a bit, because by using Leader Summons, they're using their MP to play cards on the field, so that means that they don't have MP to like play a destroy spell. So I'm kind of like, in a sense, baiting them, and by doing this, I'm making sure that they don't have MP to instantly respond to what I'm going to do next. And additionally, by doing that, that means that I at least get some type of value from my unit before they die. Because it's going to happen. Your units are going to die, but you still want to like squeeze the little last drop of your units. Like, even if usually what that means is like instant blocking. So if you last second block, even if your unit dies, at least you got the block. So that's why a lot of players, they don't play their cards early. They're not like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, put this blocker down halfway before this unit's gonna hit. No, they always last second block, because you want to make sure you get that block. So we got the Leader Summons. I lost 2 of my units. It's a pretty bad play. But I'm always playing for mid game. My mid game is like crazy as hell. My mid game is crazy. Yeah, this deck's mid game is crazy. That's why I love this deck. Okay, so this is where Ashikaga is literally my second card in this game. So Ashikaga is the second card I've played in this game, and that's pretty good because, you know, I lost my Leader Summons units. I played him, and the reason why I use Karin here to ascend on top of the Jaggy is because the Jaggy actually does nothing. And I didn't want to play Heavenly Kicks Chun to challenge the gate, because the gate's gonna like destroy any legendary that I put in front. So to me, that meant that I either had to go into Huitzel or I had to go into Karin. And having an extra 2 big units means that at least one of them is gonna survive, and then also I'm putting pressure in other lanes. So having the mana to do this and have 2 threats on board was very powerful and beneficial to me. So even though I sealed nothing, at least I put down another threat, which got instantly Akuma'd. But then we have Ashikaga down here. He's still a threat. You know, I'm getting my worth. Gate kills himself. That's the weakness about Gate, And that's why a lot of games you'll see me just take the 6 damage from Gate. Because while Gate is great, the only time you as the player facing against like a fully growth Gate loses out on advantage is if you block it. If you block it twice, like you play a unit and the unit dies to like a fully growth Gate, and then you play another card to block it, you lose so much MP that you could have used to like actually win board advantage. And the thing about Gate is he kills himself. So because Gate doesn't really stay, that means that he's not contributing to the game any further, if that makes sense. Gate, when he's about to self-destruct, does not contribute to the board, does not contribute to your hand. Blocking it doesn't really make sense. The only reason why you would want to block Gate is if you didn't want to lose a 6 life. Your life in TEPPEN actually does not matter. Your life count does not matter. The reason why it doesn't matter is because you'll see a lot of games in TEPPEN and even other card games where you're just at 1 health, but you can still win. The real battle, the real game here is the battle of resources on the field. Everything on the field matters way more than your life total. So that's why in a lot of games that you see me play on stream, I'm always taking the 6 damage. Because the Gate's going to kill himself, and it's not going to stay to add to his board presence. So I just wanted to point that out. So I have Ashikaga, Akuma's in there. Nothing in my hand really trades well with the Akuma. But I also want to say that my deck, this deck is designed to where my blocks suck. Like, I really suck at blocking. As you'll see here, I have to block with a Huitzel. Because I don't have any 3-drops, I don't have any 4-drops. I have just 6 and 5 costs that win me the game. The whole point of my deck is to pop off with big, strong units in the mid game. Like, my early game is bad, my late game is determined by my mid game. So this deck is really weird. You will not see a lot of TEPPEN decks like this one. But I do last second block this Akuma. And unfortunately it doesn't even kill the Akuma. But I still blocked, because, you know, 6 life is a lot. So this was a very obvious pro games play. Because they use self-predation to gain 7 health. But you can see they have like 10 mana here. And I have 2 units. The only reason why you would ever activate this instead of like having the Huitzel trade with the Akuma is if you had Cruel Games. So now I know that they're going to do like Cruel Games kill both my cards. And I'm going to have about like the same mana. You know, once they do that. And I make a really tough and interesting decision here. Is I get 2 free blue mana when they use self-predation. And what I decide to do is I decide to hyper cycle, and I have this this shield here. So shields in the black matchup, they're okay, but they're not good. Your shields are even worse in the black matchup because black doesn't really give a damn about your shields. They just destroy your card. So I decide to burn this Blade Shattering Defense because I realized that this card has low value in this matchup. Alternatively, I could have used Beast Cannon. I even had to think about it. Also, I top deck into Gold Orb. I top decked into Gold Orb, which is going to be very relevant for when they play Cruel Games. Oh. There's one more thing I want to say. If I hope Chris D is here. I hope Chris D is here. You guys know how I always complain about Incense of Doom? You guys know how I always complain about Incense of Doom? Alright. I'm gonna complain about Incense of Doom again. So I always say that the cards that you pick in your deck have to have meaning in them, and that each card has a huge significance. So there isn't really times in Teppen that you can put a card in your deck where it does nothing in most matchups, if that makes sense. Because generally when you build decks and you want to win in Teppen, your cards have to have meaning in almost most scenarios, most cases. Most of your cards need to have meaning. Like, for example, like I could always play a Chun, I could always play Ieyasu, I can, you know, sometimes play shields and attack boost. Like I could always play those in every game, most situations, you know. There's always a time for these cards. But to put Instance of Doom where it does nothing, and it could have been a different card, that will cost you guys games. And let me show it here. So I decided to play the shield, and the reason why Instance of Doom is a bad card, it's actually a good card, but it's just not relevant to this meta, is imagine if this gold orb was an Instance of Doom. If this gold orb was an Instance of Doom, I would have felt bad for drawing one card and it was an Instance of Doom in a matchup that didn't matter. So that's my point, is when you're playing Teppen and you're trying to draw, it's really important to not have cards that are bad in matchups or situations. It really is not worth to put one card, because a lot of games will swing to your favor or your opponent's favor based on one card drawn. And because I drew into this one card that I needed in this matchup, which was Gold Orb, I was able to get +6 advantage here. But if this was a card like Lightning Rod, for example, if this was Lightning Rod, I would have, you know, lost that advantage. I'm just telling you guys right now that the one card in your deck really does make a difference, whether it's good in all situations or no situations or little situations. It is really important, because you're always going to be drawing cards one by one, and because you had that Instance of Doom that could have been something else, like a Gold Orb, for example, you know, that could cost you the game. It's not worth it. That's my reasoning. So instant cruel games here, and I want you to check the mana on Expert Hunter. He has 4 MP, but 2 of it's blue. So after this action phase, he'll only have 2 mana. So by me using Gold Orb, that's an instant +6, because that means that I have a 6 cost unit, and Xanthus only has 2 MP. Like, I'm losing on health. I'm losing on health because I took all the damage from those gates. And that's fine, because you don't want to win on health. You in the game, you want to win on resources, which is the board. So it was very lucky that I drew into this Gold Orb, played it on Ashikaga. That's a +6 in resource on face value on the field. So I have a 6 MP unit, and Xanthus only has 2 MP. He's winning in health though. He's winning in health. But as of the board, I am winning. I got a lucky roll. Got to kill the zombie without taking damage. Felt great. Drop Chun because now we have 2 units. I know that he doesn't have access to Oh, also I missed the Shield Spire there, which kind of sucked. I just didn't think he would have cuz okay, let me scroll back here. So the reason why I didn't Shield Spire here is because if he played zombie, like either version of zombie, then I would still get to keep my Chun. And the reason why I didn't want to Shield Spire is because they might have like a hard destroy or something. I just know that I have the opportunity to last second use Shield Spire because I don't know where he's gonna block. You know, because if he blocks bottom, then I want Shield Spire on bottom. If he blocks top, then I want Shield Spire on top. So that's why I waited this long to use Shield Spire, is because I didn't know where my opponent was gonna block. And it was safe for me to not use Shield Spire on Chun, because in most situations where Xanxus has cards in his deck, a lot of his cards, 99% of his cards, do not trade 1-for-1 with Chun-Li. So that's why I didn't Shield Spire either of the units, was because they're not being challenged. If I Shield Spire one of them, then obviously Xanxus will, you know, he'll react and then he'll block like the other unit, because blocking the one that doesn't have Shield Spire doesn't make sense. You have to kind of like kill that unit through alternative means. But here's where we talk about that 1%, which is Tenkai. So Tenkai, I did not realize he had mana for it and would kill Chun. But that was great. That was a great play, for sure. And at this point, this means that now I can Shield Spire. Actually, I'm not even gonna Shield Spire Ashikaga. I'm gonna Shield Spire X here. Yeah. So I drop X and then I Shield Spire. It's really hard to get that hero art up top. Let me tell you, so when I hero art up top, I always open like a little bit of breathing room, because if I was like playing a unit in bot lane, it's really easy to hero art, just like, you know, swipe. But up top, I always give myself a little bit of breathing room to drag the hero art and then pop it onto the card that I'm playing it on. Because you can see that it was pretty much like one whole motion that I dropped X and then I used hero art. And I was able to get the hero art on X on the last second possible, because I gave myself that breathing room to play the card. Ashikaga was able to kill the thing. Xanxus is like very far behind on resources. Like, he doesn't have MP for Hard Destroy if he had one. So I'm able to play shield here to block the gate, which was great. X is gonna kill this Tube Fox, which means that X will return himself onto the field when he dies. And now I have a bunch of Shield Spire, big units. Like, this game is going very well for me. What I love about Ayasu is he heals the board based on how many units you have, so he's healing 3. And a lot of it kept going onto the X. So X just kept getting bigger. And at this point, I don't have to play any cards, you know, just let it fold. Because he already used Cruel Games and we're just way too far ahead.